It started with a sound I'd never heard before, metal grinding against concrete, followed by a shriek so sharp it cut through the quiet of a Sunday morning. I walked out to my driveway and froze, because there she was, Karen, clutching a crowbar, standing next to what had once been my perfectly mounted Tesla wall charger. Now it hung like a broken limb, wires exposed, sparking faintly against the stucco. She wasn't even subtle. She had yanked it out and was dragging it toward her side of the property, leaving a black streak across the concrete as if she were repossessing something that was never hers. I didn't shout. I didn't run at her. I just stood there, taking in the absurdity of a middle-aged woman in a sun hat and tennis skirt committing electrical vandalism at 8 o'clock in the morning. She noticed me finally and had the gall to look offended. "You can't just hog all the electricity in this neighborhood," she snapped. "The HOA bylaws give us equal rights to shared resources." I blinked. Shared resources? My private charger, installed on my property, that I'd paid nearly $2,000 to put in, was now apparently community property in her mind. Instead of yelling, I smiled and leaned on the doorframe. "Karen, you realize that's hardwired into my breaker box, right? You're not unplugging a lamp, you're stealing a live circuit." She waved a dismissive hand, as if I were the unreasonable one. "Don't gaslight me. You people with your fancy toys think rules don't apply. My son has a Prius, and he deserves access too." Her son, who lived 3 towns over and visited twice a year, was now the martyr in her crusade. I pulled out my phone, not to call the cops yet but to film, because moments like this are the kind juries eat up. She must have sensed it because she doubled down, yanking again until the charger's mounting plate gave way entirely, leaving a chunk of my wall exposed. Then she tried dragging the whole thing toward her garage like it was salvage she'd lawfully purchased. Sparks fizzled along the cord. "You're really going to faint when you see the repair bill," I said lightly. "Tesla doesn't exactly have a discount menu for this kind of destruction." Her face flushed red, either from the weight of the charger or the realization that she was being recorded. But she didn't back off. Instead, she planted the charger on her lawn like a trophy and crossed her arms. "Good. Let Tesla send me the bill. I'll forward it to the HOA. They'll cover it." And that's when the hook sank in deeper. Because what she didn't know, and what made me smile despite the mangled wires and ruined stucco, was that Tesla doesn't just send bills. They send itemized damage assessments, installation records, and sometimes even legal packets if foul play is suspected. And Karen, in her entitlement, had just made herself the star of a very expensive paper trail. That was the moment I realized I didn't need to scream or threaten. All I had to do was keep the camera rolling, keep my sarcasm sharp, and let her dig her own financial grave one entitled tug at a time. I didn't sleep much that night, not because of stress but because of anticipation. The footage of Karen ripping my EV charger out of the wall was gold. Pure, uncut, Reddit front page gold, and I knew it. But instead of blasting it online right away, I played the long game. See, people like Karen thrive on attention when it's immediate. But they crumble when consequences creep up slowly, paperwork after paperwork, bill after bill. And I wanted her to feel every step of that descent. By morning, the charger lay abandoned on her lawn like a corpse no one wanted to claim. She dragged it only halfway to her garage before giving up, and now it leaned against her garden gnome, wires twisted like spaghetti. I filmed it again, walking past casually with my coffee. Lovely yard decor, Karen. Very industrial chic. Her blinds twitched, then snapped shut. By mid-morning, the HOA board group chat lit up. Our HOA is the kind of place where people argue for 20 minutes over whether mailbox paint should be almond white or bone white. So naturally, the idea of an electrified hunk of Tesla hardware sitting on Karen's petunias became a hot topic. She struck first, posting, "Urgent. Neighbor's EV charger unsafe. Sparks. Fire hazard. Should be removed and costs shared for safety." She was spinning it already, trying to make herself the hero of the story. I replied with a single photo, the charger resting against her gnome. Caption: Thanks for the landscaping upgrade, Karen. Didn't realize HOA landscaping covered electrical theft. Within 2 minutes, 5 board members had left question marks under her post. One typed, "Wait, did you move his charger?" She didn't respond. She just left the group, which, honestly, was the best admission of guilt I could have asked for. That afternoon, I filed a police report. Not because I thought she'd end up in cuffs. Petty vandalism rarely gets that far, but because I wanted a case number. Case numbers turn into insurance claims. Insurance claims turn into official letters. And official letters terrify people who think the HOA is the highest authority on earth. Meanwhile, I scheduled Tesla's repair service. The technician came in a white van, clipboard in hand, eyebrows shooting up when he saw the charger slumped like roadkill in the grass. "What happened here?" he asked. I showed him the video. He whistled low. "Well, sir, this isn't a standard malfunction. This is deliberate removal. And Tesla policy is clear on deliberate removal. We document everything and send the bill to the responsible party if identified." He paused, then grinned. "And she's clearly identified. The estimate he printed made me want to frame it. $4,872.36. That included not only a new charger but also wall repair, rewiring, and an emergency safety inspection." He added, "Because she pulled it while it was live, we'll need to certify there's no hidden fire hazard. That adds to the cost." I signed happily, knowing exactly whose mailbox this would land in. I didn't have to wait long for the fireworks. 2 days later, I was sipping coffee again when I heard the shriek from across the street. Karen, standing in her driveway, waving a crisp Tesla envelope like it had personally insulted her family name. She marched over, red-faced, and slapped the paper against my chest. "You set me up. You colluded with that company to frame me with this extortion." I read it out loud for dramatic effect. "Dear Ms. Whitfield, per video evidence and property damage assessment, you are responsible for the removal of Tesla wall charger serial number 2A9X balance due, $4,872.36. I handed it back with a smile. "Frame you? Karen, you framed yourself. Literally. My phone camera has better resolution than your entire alibi." Her tone shifted from anger to panic. "The HOA will cover this. They have to. This is community infrastructure." I chuckled. "Community infrastructure? Karen, it's bolted into my breaker box. The only thing it ever powered was my car. Unless your HOA application included a clause for private vehicle fuel reimbursement, you're on your own." That's when she fainted. Not dramatically, not like a soap opera, just a slow buckle at the knees, as though the weight of the number $4,872.36 pressed down harder than gravity itself. She caught herself on my mailbox, muttered something about unjust persecution, then stumbled back toward her yard like a wounded soldier. The thing about people like Karen is they don't retreat quietly. They regroup. And sure enough, that night she rallied. Flyers appeared on doorsteps, hand-printed with bold marker. "Stop electric privilege. Demand equal charging rights. Reject private monopolies." She was trying to spin her vandalism into activism, painting herself as the Rosa Parks of EV charging. Most neighbors ignored it. A few texted me laughing. One sent me a photo of his flyer with, "Karen is losing it," scribbled in the margin. But 2 families, both older, both anti-tech, actually bought her narrative. "Why should one guy hog the juice?" one muttered at the mailbox. "We all pay HOA fees." I smiled politely, knowing that logic would catch up with them eventually. Because the beauty of the situation was simple. Tesla doesn't negotiate with Karens. They don't care about HOA bylaws or flyers. They care about wiring safety, liability, and invoices. And every day that bill sat unpaid, it grew teeth. Late fees, legal fees, potential liens. I sat back, calm, sarcastic, sipping coffee while Karen scrambled. She thought she'd humiliated me by tearing out my charger. She thought she'd won some symbolic war over community resources. But what she'd actually done was sign herself up for a $5,000 lesson in what happens when entitlement meets corporate policy. And I hadn't even played my ace card yet. Because what she also didn't know was that Tesla, upon seeing my footage, had offered me something Karen could never twist into a villain narrative: a complimentary upgrade to their newest Gen 3 wall charger, installed free of charge. The van was scheduled to arrive in 3 days. Karen was about to learn that when you rip out someone else's charger, you don't just get a bill. You create the perfect stage for your own public humiliation. And I was more than happy to sell tickets to the show. 3 days later, the white Tesla van pulled into my driveway again, this time carrying my golden ticket. 2 technicians stepped out, both with the casual confidence of people who know they're about to make a homeowner very, very happy. They rolled open the back doors and revealed the gleaming Gen 3 wall connector, sleeker, shinier, faster than the one Karen had ripped from my wall like a raccoon stealing chicken wire. As they worked, carefully rewiring and patching the damage Karen had left behind, I sat in a lawn chair with a mug of coffee, enjoying the show. Neighbors strolled by, pretending to be out for morning walks but clearly slowing down to rubberneck. They whispered, glancing at Karen's house, then at the shining new charger being installed in mine. Even better, the technicians had parked the Tesla van in such a way that it blocked her mailbox temporarily. She couldn't even collect her bills without walking past the scene of her defeat. Right on cue, her blinds snapped open. Her face appeared, twisted into something between outrage and disbelief. Then the front door slammed, and out she came in full battle armor. Visor hat, yoga pants, HOA rulebook tucked under her arm like a holy text. "Excuse me," she barked at the technicians. "This installation violates neighborhood guidelines. You cannot proceed without board approval." The younger tech didn't even look up. "Ma'am, this is a direct replacement, and we're contracted with the owner. We don't need your HOA's permission." She sputtered. "That's not true. All modifications must be submitted for committee review." The older tech, clearly a veteran of customer Karen battles, pulled out a laminated sheet from his clipboard. "Tesla installs are federally protected under EV infrastructure guidelines. HOA restrictions don't override state or federal energy regulations. Would you like me to show you the statute number?" Karen's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No sound came out this time. She stood frozen like a glitching computer, and for once, silence became her only defense. She turned on her heel and stormed back inside, but not before shouting over her shoulder, "You'll all regret this." An hour later, my new charger was live. Sleek white faceplate, glowing green light, certified safe, fully operational. The technicians even cleaned up the stucco mess Karen's crowbar had caused, leaving my garage wall smoother than before. One of them gave me a grin as he packed up. "Enjoy it. And don't worry, if anyone tries to rip this one out, it's got tamper alerts now. You'll get a ping on your phone." I didn't think much of it at first. Tamper alerts? Cute, but unnecessary. Surely Karen had learned her lesson after fainting over a $4,800 bill. Surely. I underestimated her. That night, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a notification: "Wall connector disturbance detected." I rubbed my eyes, walked to the garage, and opened the side door to find Karen, in her pajamas, with a flashlight clenched between her teeth and gardening shears in her hand, hacking at the thick black cable like it was a weed choking her roses. I leaned against the doorframe, calm as ever. "Karen, you do know that's a live cable, right? Those aren't daisies. That's 240 volts. You could fry yourself faster than a toaster strudel." She jumped, nearly dropped the shears, then hissed at me like a feral cat. "You can't have exclusive access. It's not fair. We all pay into this neighborhood, and you're stealing power." I almost laughed. "Stealing? Karen, it's on my meter. I pay the bill. You want in? Call the power company and open an account." But you're not hacking into my garage like it's the Matrix. She tried one more snip, sparks flying, then shrieked when they singed her sleeve. That was the end of her bravery. She tossed the shears into my flower bed and ran home, flailing her arms as if the air itself were on fire. By morning, the story had spread. The HOA WhatsApp group lit up again, this time with someone posting, "Did anyone else hear Karen screaming last night? Sounded like a banshee." I posted a photo of the singed cable sleeve, just a tiny burn mark, and captioned it, "Karen tried to garden my EV charger." Results: crispy. The laughing emojis poured in. But here's where the plot twisted again. Instead of retreating, Karen escalated. At the next HOA meeting, she stormed in with a stack of papers, demanding the creation of a community EV charging station, and insisting my charger be confiscated as a shared amenity. She even claimed she'd been injured in the line of duty, trying to prevent me from monopolizing resources. The board stared at her like she'd grown a second head. One member finally asked, "Karen, are you saying you intentionally damaged your neighbor's private property?" She didn't even blink. I was performing a community safety inspection. I nearly spit out my water. Community safety inspection? At 2 a.m. in pajamas with gardening shears? The board wasn't buying it. They voted 6-1 to dismiss her proposal, with the lone yes vote being Karen herself. She stomped out, muttering about conspiracies, but I knew what she'd do next. People like Karen don't quit, they escalate laterally. And sure enough, the very next day a county inspector showed up at my door, clipboard in hand. "Sir, we've had a complaint filed about unpermitted electrical work." I smiled. Let me guess. Middle-aged, visor hat, has a history of confusing bylaws with Bible verses. He chuckled. "You're not the first to describe her that way." I walked him to the garage, showed him the Tesla install papers, the permits, the inspection stickers. All pristine and official. He nodded. "Looks in order." Honestly, I think she just wanted to waste our time. I asked him one question before he left. "Out of curiosity, do you keep a record of who files the complaints?" He grinned. "Of course. And those records are public." That was the moment I realized Karen had just dug herself a new hole. Because if she kept filing fraudulent complaints, there was a legal path forward. Harassment, fines, maybe even court. And I was patient enough to let her keep filing until she buried herself. That night, I sat on my porch, sipping a beer, charger humming softly in the garage, watching Karen pace in her yard like a caged animal. She'd ripped out my first charger, fainted at the bill, burned her sleeve trying to cut the second, and now dragged the county inspector into her personal war. And yet, the real twist was still coming. Because while she thought she was fighting me, she didn't realize Tesla had already forwarded her unpaid invoice to collections. And collections, unlike neighbors, don't care about HOA politics. They just show up with numbers, deadlines, and consequences. Karen's fainting spell over the first bill was just the prelude. The real collapse hadn't even begun yet. The letter arrived on a Wednesday morning, tucked neatly among the usual HOA spam about lawn maintenance and approved holiday decor. It wasn't from the HOA this time. It was from a collections agency, bold black lettering across the envelope, the kind of thing that makes most people's stomachs turn before they even open it. But it wasn't my stomach that had to turn, it was Karen's. I knew the moment she opened her mailbox because I saw her freeze, stiff as a statue, gripping the envelope like it might bite her. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The show had begun. She stormed inside, slamming her door so hard a bird flew off her gutter in panic. 10 minutes later, I heard the yelling. It carried through her walls, muffled but distinct, words like illegal, fraud, and I'll sue. My favorite part was when she shouted, "They can't make me pay for this." I was protecting the neighborhood. I could almost picture her pacing the living room, clutching that notice like it was radioactive. By afternoon, the neighborhood was buzzing. She'd called 3 different board members, screaming about a corporate conspiracy to bankrupt her, and one of them texted me afterward with a screenshot of her rant. If we let him get away with this, next he'll be charging us admission to walk past his driveway. The replies under it were nothing but laughing emojis. But Karen wasn't laughing. The next escalation came fast. That evening, a knock rattled my door. When I opened it, there she was. Hair frazzled, fists clenched, eyes wide like she hadn't blinked in an hour. She thrust the collections letter at me, jabbing a finger at the balance. "This is your fault. You're going to fix it. Right now." I took my time reading it, though I'd already guessed the contents. I said, pretending to study the fine print. Balance due, $4,872.36, plus a $200 collections fee. Payment required within 30 days or further action may be taken. I whistled low, handed it back. Tough break, Karen. You might want to set up a payment plan. I hear they're very flexible. She nearly exploded. I will not pay for your toy charger. The HOA will hear about this. The city will hear about this. The state will hear about this. I leaned against the doorframe, calm and amused. The state already heard about it. That's why Tesla had a permit. Remember the inspector you summoned last week? He confirmed everything was legal. So unless you plan to petition the Supreme Court, I think you're running out of branches to climb. She stomped away, muttering threats, but I noticed her hands were trembling. It was dawning on her. This wasn't a neighborly spat anymore. This was money, and money doesn't go away just because you yell at it. The very next day, Karen tried her boldest move yet. She showed up at the HOA meeting with a typed resolution. Emergency allocation of community funds to resolve Tesla dispute. In short, she wanted everyone's dues to cover her bill. She stood at the podium, reading dramatically about economic oppression, shared burden, and community responsibility. The room was dead silent for a long moment. Then one board member, quiet old Mr. Fletcher, who usually only spoke to complain about squirrels, raised his hand and asked, "Karen, are you admitting you ripped out his charger?" She flinched but tried to spin it. I was conducting an emergency safety inspection. It was sparking. I couldn't resist. From the back of the room, I called out, "Sparking because you yanked it out of the wall with a crowbar." A wave of chuckles rippled through the audience. Karen's face turned crimson. The vote was swift. 8-0 against her resolution. She stormed out, and I half expected the sound of another fainting spell on the sidewalk. Instead, she went quiet for the first time in weeks. Too quiet. That night, around midnight, the tamper alert buzzed my phone again. I opened the garage door cautiously, phone camera ready, and caught Karen crouched by the charger with duct tape. She was slapping strips across the glowing green light, muttering, "If they can't see it working, they can't charge me for it." I laughed so hard I startled her. "Karen, are you seriously trying to tape over electricity? That's like putting a Band-Aid on a volcano." She shrieked and bolted, duct tape trailing from her wrist, leaving behind a half-covered charger that still glowed green through the gap. I filmed the whole thing. The next morning, I posted it to the HOA group chat with the caption, "Karen attempts electrical camouflage. Not OSHA approved." The video went semi-viral among our neighbors, spreading to extended family and friends. Someone even put dramatic background music over it. For once, Karen's antics weren't terrifying the neighborhood, they were entertaining it. She'd become a meme. But the collections agency wasn't laughing. A week later, a second notice arrived. This time, the balance was higher. Interest and additional fees had bloated it to over $5,300. Karen's meltdown could be heard halfway down the street. She marched over again, waving the paper in my face. "I can't afford this. They'll ruin my credit. Do you understand what that means? I'll lose everything." For the first time, I saw something beneath the entitlement. Fear. Real, raw fear. Her world wasn't built for consequences. It was built for bending rules, bullying neighbors, hiding behind HOA technicalities. But money? Debt collectors? That was a different battlefield, and she was out of armor. I didn't gloat this time. I simply said, then maybe stop ripping out things that don't belong to you. And I closed the door. Over the next few days, Karen spiraled. She called emergency board meetings that no one attended. She papered the neighborhood with more flyers. Stop corporate extortion. Say no to Tesla tyranny. She even set up a folding table by her driveway, trying to gather signatures for a petition. Only 2 people signed. Her cousin who lived in another town and a man who thought he was signing up for a free car wash. The neighborhood had turned against her. Kids laughed when they biked past her petition station. Adults rolled their eyes. And the board, tired of the constant disruptions, started discussing disciplinary action against her for harassment and misuse of HOA channels. Meanwhile, I got another knock on my door. This time from a courier. He handed me a fresh envelope from Tesla. Inside was a thank you letter for my cooperation in resolving a vandalism incident and a $250 charging credit for my trouble. Tesla, it seemed, had decided to sweeten my victory with a little bonus. I taped the letter to my fridge and smiled every time I plugged in my car. Karen must have heard about it somehow, because that evening she cornered me while I was taking out the trash. "Do you think this is funny? You're destroying me," she shouted, her voice cracking. "Do you enjoy watching me suffer?" I looked her dead in the eye, calm as ever. "No, Karen. I enjoy watching consequences finally catch up." And that's when she finally broke. Tears welled, her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're going to take me to court. I can't handle that." Then, almost pathetically, she asked, "Can't we just call it even?" For a moment I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the crowbar, the sleepless nights, the county inspector, the duct tape fiasco. And I realized she wasn't sorry. She was scared. That's not the same thing. So I shook my head, tossed my trash bag in the bin, and said, "Actions have price tags, Karen. You don't get to put yours on my tab." She staggered back, clutching her collections notice, and retreated into her house like a defeated general carrying her last failed battle plan. But the war wasn't quite over. Because collections were only phase 1. Court was looming, and with it, the possibility of liens, judgments, maybe even a sheriff's visit. Karen thought fainting at a bill was bad. She hadn't seen anything yet. The sheriff's SUV showed up on a Tuesday morning, pulling into our cul-de-sac with the kind of slow authority that makes every curtain twitch. It wasn't here for me. My lawn was trimmed, my mailbox was boring, my EV charger was humming along just fine. It was here for Karen. And watching her face when she realized that was like watching someone find out gravity applied selectively to them. The deputy stepped out, papers in hand, and knocked on her door. I sipped my coffee from the porch, pretending to scroll my phone while listening with all the subtlety of a gossip columnist. Karen opened the door, already bristling. "What is this about? I haven't done anything wrong." The deputy handed her the documents calmly. "Ma'am, this is a court summons related to unpaid damages filed by Tesla Energy. You're required to appear at the county courthouse in 30 days. Failure to comply could result in a judgment against you." Her voice cracked so loudly the whole street could hear. "This is harassment. This is persecution. This is—" The deputy cut her off with the practiced tone of someone who has heard every excuse in the book. "Ma'am, this isn't optional. You've been properly served. Have a good day." He tipped his hat, turned, and walked back to his SUV. Karen stood frozen in the doorway, clutching the papers like they were burning her hands. The neighborhood erupted in whispers after the SUV rolled away. A group of dog walkers exchanged looks. A teenager on a bike muttered, "Dude, she's going to court?" Word spread faster than wildfire. By noon, everyone knew. Karen wasn't just dealing with a collections agency anymore, she was officially in Tesla's legal crosshairs. That evening, she came storming across my lawn, waving the summons like a flag of war. "You could stop this," she shouted. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding. If you cared about this community, you'd make this go away. I stayed calm as always. Karen, I didn't rip out my charger. You did. Tesla doesn't ask for my opinion on whether they want their money. They want theirs, not mine. Her voice dropped into a trembling plea. Please. I can't afford this. I'll lose my credit, my car, maybe even my house. I didn't think it would go this far. I studied her for a long moment. For the first time, I saw the raw edges beneath the entitlement. This wasn't performance anymore, she was cornered. But pity is a currency she'd never earned from me. Actions have price tags, I said evenly. And this one's overdue. She spun on her heel and left, but not before hissing, "If I go down, I'm taking you with me." The next week was chaos. Karen launched one last offensive. She blasted the HOA mailing list with a 2,000-word manifesto about corporate tyranny and neighbor collusion. She stood on her lawn, yelling into her phone about lawyers who were lining up to defend her. No one was. She even tried to organize a protest outside my house, but only 2 people showed up. Her sister and a confused UPS driver who thought it was a package pickup. Meanwhile, I prepared. Tesla's legal team contacted me to confirm my willingness to provide the original video as evidence. I agreed instantly. They asked if I'd testify if needed. I told them I'd bring popcorn if the court allowed it. The day of the hearing arrived, and the courthouse felt more like a stage than a legal venue. Karen marched in wearing a blazer that still had the department store tag swinging from the sleeve. She carried a binder stuffed with flyers, petitions, and HOA printouts, as if any of it would outweigh video proof of her crowbar stunt. The judge didn't look impressed. Tesla's lawyer played the video within the first 5 minutes. There was Karen, in all her glory, yanking the charger out of my wall like it was a stubborn weed, sparks spitting in protest. The courtroom gasped. Karen stammered, "That video is out of context." The judge raised an eyebrow. "How much context is required to explain you tearing a device off your neighbor's property?" She launched into her speech about community rights, safety hazards, corporate greed. The judge cut her off. "Ma'am, this is very simple. You damaged private property. That property belonged to your neighbor and was installed legally. Tesla, as the manufacturer and installer, incurred repair costs. You are responsible for those costs. This isn't tyranny. It's liability." The ruling was swift. Full payment owed plus court fees. The number now hovered around $6,000. When the gavel fell, Karen collapsed into her chair, pale and shaking. Outside the courthouse, neighbors who had come just to watch congratulated me quietly. One whispered, "Best free entertainment I've had all year." Karen shuffled past us, binder clutched to her chest, eyes glassy. She didn't faint this time, but she looked like she'd been hollowed out from the inside. Back at home, life settled quickly, for me, anyway. My charger hummed happily, my Tesla app notified me of clean charging sessions, and the neighbors seemed lighter, freer, as though Karen's constant storm had finally broken. For her, the storm was just beginning. A lien notice arrived a month later when she didn't pay. A sheriff's sticker appeared on her door. Rumors spread that she'd maxed out credit cards trying to stall the inevitable. And then came the for sale sign. A big, bright one, planted in her yard by a realtor who looked equal parts amused and exhausted. The listing went online. Charming 3-bedroom, HOA community, motivated seller. Motivated was putting it lightly. Karen's empire of flyers, tantrums, and false crusades had finally collapsed under the weight of a charger she should never have touched. The day the moving truck pulled up, I stood on my porch again, coffee in hand, watching as Karen loaded box after box with the fury of someone blaming the world instead of themselves. She didn't look at me once, but as the truck pulled away, I couldn't resist. I raised my mug in a mock toast and said softly, "Charge complete." The neighbors laughed when I told them later. The HOA board quietly updated their bylaws to explicitly prohibit tampering with private EV equipment, just in case another Karen tried to rise from the ashes. And me? I got peace. My driveway stayed clear, my charger stayed untouched, and my mornings returned to the gentle hum of electricity instead of crowbars and shriek. Karen thought ripping out my charger would prove a point. All it proved was that entitlement is expensive, arrogance even more so, and when Tesla sends the bill, no amount of flyers, tantrums, or fainting spells can make it disappear. That was the story of how my neighbor tried to steal electricity and ended up losing everything. Not with a bang, not with a victory, but with a collections notice, a court ruling, and a for sale sign planted where her crusade used to stand. And every time I plug in my car, I remember the faint pop of sparks, the crowbar scraping concrete, and the sound of her voice yelling, "You'll all regret this." She was half right. She regretted it plenty. The rest of us? We just enjoyed the show.